We are witnessing the residents of Western countries increasingly favoring national-oriented politics. In France, the first round of early parliamentary elections has just concluded. These were called by the country's president after his party's defeat in the European Parliament elections. The voting has ended. The National Rally Party, led by Marine Le Pen, won convincingly, with Macron only coming in third. Perhaps he wanted to be the third Napoleon, but that's not a title, just his party's position after the first round. Protests erupted in Paris from those dissatisfied with the election results, but the most interesting part is yet to come. The second round of elections, which will finally determine the balance of power in the Fifth Republic, will take place on July 7th. Details in the report by Evgeny Belousov.
Record turnout and a heated night. France has summed up the results of the first round of parliamentary elections, with over 66% of voters casting their ballots. The far-right conservative National Rally Party, led by Marine Le Pen, garnered over 33% of the votes. The leftists are in second place, while Emmanuel Macron's ruling coalition suffered a humiliating defeat. Western media have already declared the end of Macronism, stating that soon the country will be partially governed by politicians sympathetic to Russia. Russia promising to reform the European Union, combat uncontrolled migration, and exit NATO.
This is a form of great emancipation. We are reclaiming our freedom. The decision to protect ourselves from other political forces that have hurt us, weakened us, and destroyed us.
As usual, preparations for this day were made in advance. The police deployed additional forces to potential protest sites, and business owners boarded up their shops with plywood. And not in vain, as firecrackers roared throughout the night in the country's major cities. After the preliminary results were announced, those unhappy with Le Pen's victory took to the streets. Cars were set on fire in Lyon and barricades were erected. In Paris, a 100,000-strong leftist rally took place, followed by riots in the city. Meanwhile, Macron has already called on politicians from other camps to unite around him for the second round. The French leader naively hopes that he can win again, as he did before. However, as they say, he has only himself to blame. After losing the European elections, Macron played with fire, dissolved the National Assembly, and bet on early voting. Even though his party could have stayed in power until 2027. He tries to place himself above the party, while his electoral support, as shown in the elections, is only 7.3% of registered voters. This means that 93% of the French did not vote for him. The French president has not been forgiven for the problems he created with his wise governance, security, illegal migration, declining living standards, rising anti-Semitism, dragging France into the Ukrainian conflict. Frankly speaking, Macron has abandoned France. He is busy with anything but his duties, and what do people do? They want revenge. Since coming to power, Macron has had enough time to prove himself, yet he has disappointed the French, just like many other governments before him. Therefore, people inevitably turn to something new that they have not tried before.
Macron is the worst for me.
However, there is an opinion that Macron planned his political suicide in advance to have his cake and eat it too. Allegedly, all his unpopular actions and militant rhetoric are because Washington truly plans to drag Paris into the conflict in Ukraine. And to prevent such a development, the French leader did everything to lower his popularity to a minimum. Then new forces will come to power, opposing military support for Kyiv, and in the White House, Macron can claim he did everything he was ordered to, but alas, it didn't work out. But these are just speculations, and the facts speak for themselves. A couple of years ago, Alexander Lukashenko warned that European officials would pay for their thoughtless policies and dancing to Washington's tune. After all, people are not willing to pay for the mistakes of the ruling elite.
Europe has sobered up. If European leaders don't understand the situation, why do they need this war? In their home, on their doorstep, they will sweep away both Schultz and Macron. Just watch, it will happen.
Of course, no one has swept Macron away yet, but what to expect from France in the future, time will tell. Specifically, next Sunday, when the second round of elections will be held in the country, and citizens will determine all the deputies, thereby bringing a new force to power or leaving everything as it is. Analysts do not rule out agreements between the presidential coalition and the leftist New People's Front. to prevent the election of far-right candidates. But even if Le Pen does not get a majority, her ally Jordan Bardella could very well become the new prime minister. And then it will be extremely inconvenient for Macron to follow orders from across the ocean until the end of his term. Evgeny Belousov, Mikhail Drugakov, News Agency.